We have just jacked up Herman and put him on axle stands because we've got another problem with him. We've noticed some knocking coming from the front, especially when we're steering at slow speed, but also we've got a whirring sound from one side of at the front and a grumbling sound from the other side. We think the wheel bearings are gone for sure, because this side actually does wobble a bit. You can feel it and hear it actually moving. The knocking, we have an idea of that as well. What do you think it was, Chaz? You've just driven him.
Hear it knock?
Yeah.
You put it lock to lock, you get what you call a CV joint, constant velocity joint knock. You've got an outer gone that side and an inner CV joint gone this side. For the price that they are, you might just put a couple of reconditioned, stroke even new drive shafts on.
That's plan A. Plan B is that. To test a wheel bearing, you need to hold the wheel about 6 o'clock, so it's one at the bottom and one at the top, and then you pull it, rock it backwards and forwards, and you should be able to, if it's worn, actually hear something and feel it as well. You don't get anything that way. It's also a good idea to turn the wheel a few times, because the bearing might actually be worn in a certain place. That wheel bearing, that was listed as an advisory on the last MOT 6 months ago. So we knew that it was on its way out. So it made perfect sense to replace the drive shafts too. We wanted to explain why we think that the drive shafts need replacing.
You get a little bit of what you call overlash or overrun, whatever you want to call it, in the diff, right? But what I want to try and do is eliminate that and just move this inner CV joint here, right? Where you're holding the shaft it's connected to, yeah. And if you can see, that shaft you're holding is not moving, right? How much that CV joint's moving there? Yeah. And it's not moving in the box, in the diff, or on the shaft you're holding. Look at the play in that, look. Yeah. And that's far too excessive, and it's the same on the other side. We've got all of the parts that we need. We've got the 2 drive shafts, we've got the tie rod ends, because they're going to be removed in it as well, and we also have the wheel bearings. Chaz, you just continue doing that hard work there. Okay, mate, not a problem. I'll just continue doing this, and you faff about with that camera. Because that's apparently all I ever do. And I'll go in and make you a nice breakfast and a cup of tea and sit you down in case you get overworked. Because, you know, God bless you. We'll edit this bit out. We don't need this nonsense. No, we won't. Now, we're going to be replacing the track rod end, which is round the back there. We're going to be replacing the bearing, which is obviously inside, and we're going to be replacing this from here. This is the drive shaft from here all the way to the engine, or the gearbox rather, in here. And then the other side, the drive shaft comes from here all the way to the hub. So it's not exactly the same as the other side, but because this side is shorter. And then of course the track rod end here as well. Now we don't actually need to replace the track rod ends. There don't seem to be anything wrong with them. However, since the whole thing is coming off, might as well do that. You know, just makes sense. They're only a few quid. So these are the drive shafts. Obviously one is longer than the other because it's further away from the gearbox. If you actually smell it at the, put your nose to it, it does smell slightly burnt. It's all swarf, look. Yeah. That's metal. Yeah, I'm not filings or swarf. Smells like welding. Yeah, it smells. That's got really hot. You've got no brakes binding or anything, so yeah, that's that wheel bearing in there I think has had its day. This is a 41mm socket, okay, for that nut. I had to buy that specifically. No socket set, what we have anyway, actually has that size. Joe, before we started, we knew that these nuts were supposed to be tightened to 500 Newton meters. So we knew the hub nuts would be tough to undo. And after unlocking the tabs, we used power tools and a breaker bar, but nothing would budge them. I was in the driver's seat stopping the steering wheel from turning when this happened. Wow, it's so tight in fact that we just bent the breaker bar that you stick on the end of the nut to get a bit more welly on it, you know? Chaz is trying to straighten the bar. If you didn't know, a breaker bar is used to help you get more leverage on nuts and bolts, and they're pretty tough tools. It took about an hour to repair the breaker bar to a usable state, including drilling and retapping a new thread. However, spoiler alert,
It didn't last long.
This time we're going to get some heat on it as well.
On the brake. No, that's the thing breaking. That is tough as old boots, mate.
What we needed was a much larger breaker bar. The king of all breaker bars.
Oh, that's it.
What are you going to do?
We might not film this bit. Right, slide that end over that. Put your foot on the brake. Pump it up and hold it right down. Put it in gear as well. Bent the bar. No. It's bent. Yeah, that's FT. I mean, they're not designed to do this, right?
No.
So, you know.
We need bigger tools.
I'm chancing my arm. I need a bigger tool. Story of my life.
Now you may be typing in the comments, oh, the thread's the other way around. No, it's the right way thread.
No,
Clockwise to tighten it up.
I checked the thread.
Yeah, we've already checked the thread. Ha ha.
Put my foot on the brake. I don't think it's going to matter though, is it?
You can put your foot on the accelerator and take it away.
The big tools now.
Well, not that big, but I don't think this is going to be man enough. I've only got a dinky little compressor, and most things I've got a dinky, unfortunately. Like cars, toys and that, you know.
Hey! Oh, look at the state of that in there.
Yeah, it's been cross-threaded. So they've had that off and they wound it on cross-threaded. No wonder. Do you know what, for 1 minute there, I thought I was getting old.
Little secret, Chaz.
I am.
You are. With one hub nut off, we then moved over to the other side, and that was just as tight. Shouldn't you be holding the camera this time? Because, you know, I'm doing all the work.
Do you know what these are for? Taking nuts off. When you do this, if you've got to put heat on something like this, really you have to change the wheel bearings and the CV joints, because putting this much heat on them could knacker the bearings and everything in there that's susceptible to grease, you know, expansion and contraction. So this is the last resort, the heat, and when you use the heat you change everything.
So we're almost off there. You can see that it's still very tight. Now we did use the breaker bar, that huge pole thing, and this, which actually straightened it out a bit. It's a bit bent, but I think that's going to be put in the bin, right?
Any tools you damage, you throw away.
Wow, oh my god.
Look at the state of that thread. That is disgraceful. They've cross-threaded it, yeah? Realised they've knackered the CV joint on the end, and just wound the bloody nut on with a big bar and a much bigger kit than we got. Yeah. Next we've got to let it cool down. That'd be about Tuesday, I should imagine. Yeah. And it's Saturday today.
But that's taken us about an hour and a half to get both nuts off.
Right, can I have that back now before my kitchen ceiling falls down? Cheers.
It's funny because it's true. Right, now we've got the nut off for both sides. We're going to have to take off the caliper, the pads and the carrier. And then round here we've got to take off the track rod end and the ball joint. And then once we've done that, we're going to also have to take off the spring and strut at this point, so we can just remove the entire hub.
Give the caliper a twist.
Oh, okay, so do give it a twist so it pushes the pads out of the way. We need to get these off. We know we're going to have a problem getting these off because, first of all, they look very rusty, but second of all, we haven't got the right spanner for it. And that looks like an Allen key, probably a 14, but I think it's a 13.
These bolts, they confused us for a while. A 12mm was way too small and a 14mm sump socket was too large. But we also knew that a 13mm Allen key just doesn't exist.
13.78, so I'd say it's a 14mm, but we'll get a set anyway.
That meant it was time to go shopping.
So we've got a whole set here, a 7, 8, 10, 12, 14 and a 17. No 13, we couldn't find a 13 anywhere, not even online, you know, like Amazon or eBay. So let's hope that this 14 fits, because the sump plug 14 one I got doesn't fit.
That's a very tight fit, if it's going to fit. It don't go in there easily. It's very bad practice.
Yeah, but don't try and whack it all the way in, but just see if it'll go in. Oh, that's undone it.
It is a 14.
Is now?
No, it is a 14. It's all the rust and the rubble that was in there.
Well, it worked out that these bolts were very rusty, gunky 14 mils. All 4 bolts were like this, and each one felt like the socket was going to turn in the bolt. We were going to have to be very lucky if we were going to remove them without any problems.
Well, that's one.
As now, do you hear the tone change?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's moving about in now. That's terrible. That has been rounded off before, that one. Look how loose that is in there.
Yeah.
That's been rounded off before. Oh God, yeah, there's nothing in there. That's proper rounded off. Oh God, we're gonna have trouble with this. Proper trouble. Please undo. Please, please, please. Come on, come on. Come on, come on please. Yes!
Oh, I didn't think that was going to go then.
Did it go?
Yeah, I saw that.
Did it turn or did it turn inside the nut?
No, it did turn.
Did it? The whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing, yeah.
Oh! Excuse my French, sorry.
Oh, am I going to have to use the bleeping machine now?
Oh, that was tight. Did you hear it crack?
Yeah, but did it move?
That was my back that went.
Oh, it's moving. Yeah, it's moving. Oh. Brilliant. You should have seen his face.
That was great. I'm fine, honest.
Right. There you go. There's the second one. Chaz?
Yep.
We got any Swarfiga?
There's a little bit over there.
All right. Right, so we're underneath now, as you can see, and this is the driver's side drive shaft. And look at those bolts here. 12 mil on there.
The longer drive shaft has a bearing along its middle, so we had to release it from its mount, which is connected to the back of the engine. The mount has these strange golf club looking bolts which hold the bearing into place, but before attempting to remove the drive shafts, we drained the gearbox oil. Otherwise there would have been a huge environmental disaster.
I just want to ask you something that's really important.
Are you
okay holding that camera? Are you getting tired?
I feel like I need to be doing something else.
Yeah, so do I. You're got a pillow, love?
I do, I want a pillow, yeah.
A little pillow.
The track rod ends were easy enough to remove, and so were the lower ball joints because we've recently replaced them. We've also recently replaced the shock absorbers, so they were easy enough to remove too. This meant that the hubs could finally be removed to get access to the drive shafts.
I'm holding the old drive shaft, and that's the new one there. Just check that the old part is similar, the same as the old part. In the case of the drive shafts here, they do look slightly different. They're the same length, but you can see here the ABS ring. The old one doesn't have one. Now I phoned them up after we got delivery and said, hey, what's going on here? Well, I think you sent me the wrong part. And they said, no, it should fit. So we're going to test that and see if it does fit.
With the disc brake removed, we went about removing the old bearings, and boy, what a problem that turned out to be. It took us 10 minutes just to remove the seal. Once we removed the bearing carrier, we could remove the spacer, which is actually required when we put it all back together again. Then we went at it with hammer and chisels, loads of heat, and then more hammer and chisels and even more heat. After an hour or so of struggling, we managed to remove one side of the bearing and then decided we needed some professional help.
As you can see, we had a lot of problems getting the bearings off the bearing carrier, and we hadn't even started on the actual hub itself here. So what we decided to do, rather than struggle, we decided to get somebody, a professional, to press them out and press them back in again and rebuild all the bearings in there. That is one side done. Just need to tighten this up, which of course is going to be the easy thing. Now it's the other side. This is what we've got to put on. We've got the drive shaft there, we've got the hub with the new bearings fitted. We've got the track rod end, and we've got, well, that's mainly the brakes in there.
Just like it famously says in all Hymers manuals, we reassembled in reverse order. The hub containing the new grease bearings were slotted onto the drive shaft. The strut and the lower ball joints were reattached. The disc brake and the carrier were next, followed by the brake pads and the caliper. Finally, we refilled the gearbox with oil. In the end, it took us 4 weekends to replace the drive shafts and bearings.
So that is the other wheel done now. All sorted, drive shaft, track rod end as well. Brakes on. The only thing we need to do is either side with this nut here, and we got to tighten that up as well. 500, did you say?
That's what it says, yeah.
500 Newton meters.
500 meters.
Now the other thing I want to check is our box of bits. So there you go. Nothing left except the wheel nuts. We've replaced these guys, replaced this, replacing these. Fantastic. One wheel on and the other on. Before you start commenting, oh, we forgot something, we need to tighten those nuts up to the correct torque.
500.
Yeah, so we're going to go to someone we know to do that for. Who's got proper torque wrench to do that.
I mean, a lot of people just murder them up tight.
Yeah, but we also need to get the tracking done. Now we've removed the track rods, we need to do the tracking as well. So there's the two things we need to do. See, other than the engine and the gearbox, everything's done on Herman. Everything's been replaced as far as The only other thing we need to do is just doing a few spots of rust on the chassis, but that will probably be it. Yeah. So, ta-da for now. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
What's a snap off?
Snap on. It was a maker tool. It's an American maker tool. If you're in the motor trade, you're either a snap on or Mac, really.
And having a snap off, what's that then?
Snap on.
Snap off. Then.
A snap off is something completely different. That's what you used to do.
Cut!